circularity hubs. We see participants are coming in. Before I hand over to Peter Joel, who will welcome you all, let me announce to you a few housekeeping rules, if you allow me. We are still in a digital context, so that we are all aware how we organize ourselves. The first point I would like to make is that this whole session will be recorded. So please be aware of this. The second point I would like to make is that apart from those who will take the floor according to the program, everybody is muted. You can use the chat box in this event for making comments, and we will also share an email address in the chat box where you can send us your comments. It's very important to get your feedback today. You will get lots of information. The last point I'd like to make, and that's the most important one, is please, only those who speak switch on the cameras. For the rest, to ensure a smooth connectivity, please switch off your cameras. So, without any further remarks from my side, I'm happy to hand over to you, Peter. The floor is yours, Peter. And my role is today this, sticking to the time a little bit. So I all wish you a very good workshop. Peter, over to you.
Thank you very much. And good morning to you all to our first workshop on this new flagship initiative, Hubs for Circularity. We need you to make this a success, and I'm very grateful, therefore, that you joined this workshop. It is the first of more of these events, first of a series. The next one will be in June during the Green Week, so that we really get a momentum starting for this new action and Hubs for Circularity. The purpose today is just to exchange information, to explain the concept and gather ideas from different perspectives. And I welcome here also all our speakers and moderators. Thank you for being with us today and for helping us in getting this action going. So I will briefly explain the why, the what, and the how about Hubs for Circularity before we listen to my colleague Peter Berkowitz from DG Regio. Regional component is very important, and then going into the concept with Angels Orduna. Hello, Angels, from the Future New Partnerships Process for Planet. And Dominique Blanchon, my colleague in Jürgen's team, who is in the lead for this workshop and who will set out our vision for this concept. So let me start with the why. Why these hubs for circularity? Of course, it's about the Green Deal, and you all know the Green Deal setting, how fundamental it is in our transition. The overarching key objective, the directionality of all EU actions, legislative, financial, strategic. So it's about a very concrete example of making the Green Deal happen. It's about acceleration of this transition. It's about the transformation of industry. And it's also about technological leadership. Let's be very clear about that. We want to show that we have a global role to play in this transformation of industry, and that we can also take the benefits for competitiveness, for jobs, for social security and social inclusion, which is very important. And the third why is that we need a proof of success. It is important that we can show that's possible. because the challenges are daunting. So we need a kind of visualization that this transformation to sustainability, to circularity is possible, it's happening, and it is good in all dimensions of sustainability, economic, social, environmental, but also in terms of institutions and governance. So that is a very strong motivation to go ahead with these hubs for circularities. What are they? They are not just a project run by the EU or someone else. They are not a subspecies of digital innovation hubs or open innovation test beds or technology infrastructures. All these instruments are more targeted towards the small and medium-sized players, the small players. The hubs for circularity are something big. They are a first of a kind, a lighthouse demonstrator plant at commercial size. So they are implementing industrial symbiosis and industrial urban symbiosis with the aim of achieving a step change in circular utilization of resources and greenhouse gas emission reduction. And all this within a representative geographical area. And that means there are very concrete place to engage regions and citizens. And here we speak about social innovation, the inclusive aspect, which is also needed in order to master the challenges ahead in this transformation. So in short, they're very concrete, they're very big, these hubs for circularity. How? How can we achieve them? First, we need, of course, a technology focus. But here, the point is that it's not about the technology of one plant or one part of a plant. It is the technology needed for symbiosis. And here we have this concept of symbiosis readiness level, which complements the well-known concept of technology readiness level, symbiosis readiness level, which requires quite a new approach to this connection of technologies and processes in industrial compounds. And this idea, I don't know, Klaus, whether you're here, goes back to a report on industrial symbiosis we have done with Klaus Sommer in spring last year. So it's about technology, but symbiotic technology. Second, it's about partnership. So the how starts with the partnership and offers a unique opportunity that industries represented in the future partnership, I mentioned it, Process for Planet, engage with us. We count on them. You will hear more from Angels to engage with the widest possible part of stakeholders across the whole EU. Very important element. Third of the how, we need, and that comes from what I just said, we need a full engagement with regions, with citizens and all stakeholders. Fourth, we need to leverage investments well beyond research and innovation in one program or one area. So wide leverage of investments beyond Horizon Europe, as beautiful as Horizon Europe is. Fifth, how this is not only about energy intensive industries. Although if we talk about cement, steel, ammonia, and ethylene industries, this is 45% of the carbon dioxide emissions of the energy intensive industries. And but we need to go beyond the energy-intensive industries, and include waste management actors, SME, local, regional authorities, educational authorities, civil society, into an area development. And sixth element, how to make it happen, it's about creativity, because to find cost-optimal pathways and new value chains will not be possible without creativity, without digital tools, artificial intelligence. The Commission will adopt today an act on artificial intelligence. And it's about this is needed for identifying new value chains, for engineering the circular economy, to make systems more effective, and rethink negative externalization. So these are just some elements about the how. Let me conclude, and I know, Jürgen, you're looking rightly on the clock. So hubs for circularity should be at the, if you get it right with your help, should be at the heart of the industrial transformation. They should be the visualization, the proof that it's possible, that we can do that with all positive effects. They are big. This is about scale. It's not about the small and beautiful. It's about, I'm not saying the ugly, but what is today a hugely complex, often polluting field compound. It's about that, to show at scale that we can transform to sustainability. And with that, I'm handing over to my colleague Peter Berkowitz. Peter, have you joined? We have, as I mentioned, a very strong ambition to create a new level of synergy with regions and regional funds, and that explains also the agenda. And then, Dominique, thanks for you for having made this workshop possible. Over to you, Peter.
Right. Well, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation. Also, Peter, thank you for the excellent introduction, which I think really sets the scene for what we want to achieve together. And I just want to pick up three ideas, Peter, that you referred to, because I think they really set out the framework within which we're working. The first is the directionality of the Green Deal. I mean, this is the kind of the leitmotif of the Commission, and we're all working towards this. The second thing is this new concept of synergies, and I think we're working very, very closely together with colleagues in DG Research and also other DGs to deliver on this new ambition for synergies. And I want to speak about this, but then my colleague Miriam Boveda later will have the opportunity to go into more detail. And then the last point that you made, I think, is absolutely crucial, and it's this notion of acceleration. And we're not just doing synergies because we want to work together. We're doing synergies because we want to accelerate towards real impact. And I liked your term lighthouse. And I think we see in terms of synergies, the circularity hubs as a kind of a lighthouse project in terms of synergies. That's where there are really some very, very concrete things to do together. Now I have a PowerPoint. Now I'm not sure, should I try and share it myself, or would it be done by Dominique? Frank, thank you. You're sharing. Okay, so so let's start with this concept of acceleration. This is the map of cohesion policy, and cohesion policy is a very complicated policy, but there is one simple thing, which is most of the money goes to the least developed places in Europe. So the biggest amount of resources will go to the red areas and the least to the yellow. Now, in the case of circularity, we know that there are significant challenges in the less developed regions in Europe in achieving our circularity objectives, and this is to do with the fact that many systems are outdated. There is a lack of capacity, and there is a need to adopt best available technologies. So what we have here is a possibility to mobilize resources in parts of Europe which are, I mean, in the jargon, not close to the technological frontier. And I think that the circularity hub concept can really help in this. Now, if I could move to the next slide. Now, I want to say something about the new concept of synergies that we have. Synergies up to this date has very much focused on the things that we are doing which are similar. That is to say, how we fit together what is going on under Horizon and what we are doing under our regional innovation through smart specialization strategies. But I think the new big challenge is to see how we can leverage what we're doing in terms of innovation, whether it's in Horizon or in terms of smart specialization, in the part of our programs which are about delivery. And for the new period, this will be our priority objective 2, sustainable growth. It will be around delivering the Green Deal. And we're talking about roughly 100 billion euros across the board: climate, environment, including circularity, waste, adaptation. So there are very, very significant resources there, which are being discussed at the moment in terms of program. If I could have the next slide. Now, just to say, in terms of the innovation side of things, that part of the triangle, I think we have to start thinking about the innovation support ecosystem in an integrated way. Now, the blue is something you're very familiar with, which is the pillar structure of Horizon. But now, in terms of synergies, in terms of policy synergies for innovation, we say you need to think together with our policy objective 1, which has the smart specialization strategies, and is a very, very broad concept of innovation, and includes, in particular, the support for SMEs and digitalization. And there, this is something which we think is an important concept for innovation in general, but also for circularity, that we need to go beyond simply technological solutions to find the connections with other parts of the economy, of the industrial ecosystem. So this is as I said, this is the one branch of the synergies. But if we could move to the next slide. And I also wanted to stress that within the smart specialization strategies, which currently are about 40 billion euros of budget in a narrow sense, perhaps more the narrow definition of innovation, and around 80 billion if you include the linkages to SMEs and digitalization and other aspects. But we've recently done some analysis, and this shows you the kind of areas that our strategies focus on. Don't worry about the left slide, just to say the whole of Europe is covered by smart specialization strategies. But we see that there are significant parts of our investments through smart specialization in technologies which are very, very relevant to the circular economy. For example, in terms of clean tech, in terms of agri-food and bioeconomy, in terms of energy and energy storage. So there are lots of capabilities going on, very much linked to the strengths of individual regions. If I could have the next slide, please. But I think the key issue is how do we transform or make use of these potentialities into impact on the ground. And this is specific objective 2.6, which is where our investment on the circular economy goes in the future. And this is the other part of the triangle of synergies, which is the relationship between knowledge creation of technologies, new approaches, new ideas, and its rollout into the real world of circularity and the challenges that we see in the regions. And these are, and as I said before, my colleague Miriam will say much more about this. But this gives you a sense of all the different types of activities which we can support in deployment. And I mean, Peter referred to demonstration and pilot actions. And in terms of our investments, we can also support these, but of course we can go even further into full-scale deployment, whether it's in support for upper stages of the waste hierarchy, circular economy and SMEs, sustainable consumption, upgrading of recycling and waste treatment, use of smart technologies for resource efficiency. Just to say, I mean, there are certain technologies which we exclude under our regulation, and unsurprisingly, this is things like landfill and incineration of residual waste. So there's a lot of possibilities here. If I have the next slide. And I think, within the landscape of synergies, I just wanted to highlight that there are all these possibilities of synergies, and we will be working together with DG Research to provide further guidance on this, so that we have an operational framework for all of these different types of synergies that we see, the seal of excellence that you hear about, the transfer of resources, cumulative funding. But I would really just like to emphasize that in the context of the circularity hubs, what we see as the key synergy which we need to build on, and we're very happy to continue the dialogue with the colleagues in DG Research and you, is what we call downstream synergies. The combination of research projects, pilots, test beds, and their scale up under cohesion policy. Now, if I could have the next slide. And I think we can potentially hit, and there are possibilities for upstream synergies as well, but I don't want to talk about that so much now. But for the downstream synergies, it really picks up on a lot of things that Peter was talking about. It's how we can carry Horizon Framework Program results towards marketable products. This notion of value chains is something which is very, very important. We see it as not just being about the investments that we can make in individual regions, but how we can help regions become part of the development of wider value chains that support industrial ecosystems across Europe. We have a new dedicated instrument for this, which will be managed by the Innovation Agency, a cohesion policy instrument, but looks a bit like Horizon. And here again, I want to emphasize this point. It's not just about the best available technologies, but it's the best available technologies that can help us accelerate circularity in less innovative regions and countries. Because there will be a very, very large return to our investment, both in terms of economic development, but in terms of lifting Europe's capacity across the board. So if I could have the next and I think final slide. Now, I just wanted to say, cohesion policy is different from Horizon. I mean, it is a bottom-up policy where the leadership, once the programs have been negotiated, is with regions, cities. And I mean, given that the ambition is to mobilize other types of actors in this process, this offers something as well which is complementary to Horizon. So if you are interested, if collectively we want to promote this agenda of acceleration of working together, then there needs to be a strong investment in creating partnerships between actors involved in the research programs and actors involved in the cohesion policy program. And this can be done at European level, but it has to be done at national and regional level. This is the only way it can be really made to function. Because we have programs which are very, very specific to regions, because one of the specificities of our policy is the recognition that every region, member state has its own pathway, its solutions that it has to find. So a big part of the discussion is matching the possibilities, the potentials, the technologies, the ambition that there is at European level with the same things at regional level. So I think there will be a need, and this is something as well we will do together with colleagues from DG Research, but also with our managing authorities. There's an exercise in awareness raising, coordination, and cooperation. So I'll finish there. I hope this is a start of a dialogue, not only at Commission level, but at national and regional level. And I would very much encourage you to go and speak to the smart specialization partnerships and the responsible bodies to see for the synergies in relation to, let's say, the innovation side, and then to the managing authorities, particularly responsible in the environmental ministries, for the possibilities for the uptake and acceleration of new ideas. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter, again, if you allow. So I think all participants got now, in my view, a very good scene setting about the why, the what, and the how. And I think, Peter, I liked your clear point, not only talk about synergies for the sake of synergies, but leverage acceleration. You manage, as you mentioned, the point specific objective 2.6. I see here questions in the chat box, a bit more generic. Do you have time, 1 or 2 minutes, Peter, for taking a question, or because we have also your colleague Miriam Boveda this afternoon in the afternoon session, for which I'm very grateful. I have one question.
Yes, I saw this question on industrial symbiosis.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I mean, for me, just to say that certainly for us,
yeah,
the concept of circularity is much broader.
Of course.
And we have a concept of circularity where the notion of technology includes social technology, consumer behavior, a whole range of different things. But I think the question here is where are the most promising interfaces between what is being done under Horizon potentially and what the circularity hubs are doing and what we're doing. Now, I understand that industrial symbiosis is something very, very important for the way in which you are pursuing things. And I would say that there is no exclusivity in this.
Hola.
And I think that's the important message. What we need is accelerators, and we will welcome them whatever the conceptual framework is.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. We are not taking the whole circular economy on board. To put in very simple terms, it's one idea, one concept. I suggest, given a bit the time, many thanks to you, Peter. We have Miriam also this afternoon, so it's good to see that we are working closely together, and we hope we are getting lots of rich material actually to engage also further with your governance instruments which we face, so that we take this concept forward to you. So thank you a lot to you, Peter, for having joined us this morning. I would like now to introduce the next two speakers in our program for today. The first one is, and we're speaking about the partnerships, is Angels Orduna, who is the Chief Executive of Aspire. Aspire represents the private side of this future partnership processes for Planet. Angels plans to give you an insight where the private side is coming under the partnership. And thereafter, Dominique Blanchon, my colleague in my team, the Industrial Transformation Unit in DG Research Innovation, will give you insights on the work and progress as regards circularity hubs, what we foresee under the Horizon Europe program now, which hopefully can be in the next weeks quickly agreed also with member states. So without further ado from my side, I'm happy to hand over to you, Angels. I see that, if you allow me, that some colleagues have still their cameras on. It would help us then really, if we stick to the rules, only the speakers switch on their cameras and the others close their cameras. It would help us a lot. So thank you very much. Over to you, Angels. Are you with us? You're with us. Good. Angels, over to you. Angels, you are muted. We can't hear you.
Mute. Okay, now I'm not muted.
You are loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much, Jürgen. I was saying that I am sharing my screen. Not sure if you can see it already. Could you confirm? Yes, I think we can see it already there. Okay. I have a small issue, sorry for that. Let me go back to it so that I can. Sorry about that. This is a. Now I cannot see again how to share it.
Frank, we do see it. We do see your slide.
You do see my screen now. Okay.
Yeah, we see your slide.
Perfect. That is perfect then. Then I continue. And then what I would like to...
Now it disappeared.
Yeah.
It disappeared? Okay.
Yeah, maybe Frank, could you take over?
Yeah, I will if you...
Okay.
Are you okay, Angels? I can take over for you. Okay.
That is okay. Thank you.
Okay, here we are. Okay, so now have a good start. All is done.
All right. All right. Good. The problem is that I cannot see it, but okay. So could we move to this now? Perfect. Could we move to the second slide? Thank you. So I just wanted to very, very briefly showcase on Aspire as a community that has grown a lot from 2012 when Aspire was created with 28 members to now more than 160 members. In reality, we are reaching the 170 now, and we moved from 8 sectors to 10 sectors representing the process industries, which is for us a very important landmark. And we are still open to new sectors, but also to newcomers like NGOs or other types of members. Could we move to the next slide? So we developed a roadmap for the next Horizon Europe program for these next processes for planet partnership. And then this has 4 important transformation levers. One of them is industrial urban symbiosis. This is, of course, related also to process innovation, which includes aspects like electrification, CCU, energy mix, resources efficiency, but also to digitalization, in which we have a holistic view. It's the whole process industry that needs to be digitalized. It's a process industry 4.0, what we are pursuing, but also the non-technological levers. We have defined 16 innovation areas and 36 innovation programs in our roadmap to achieve our goals. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here, let me focus now on the industrial symbiosis, because that is the goal today, right? So which are the challenges of industrial symbiosis? The main challenge is that still the business models are linear. So landfilling and incineration are still a big part of the this linear equation, and together with downcycling, name it as recycling or reuse or whichever other way, these are important steps. But only 12% of the resources used in the EU in 2016 came from materials recovered and upcycled by the industry. This is yet very far from the EU goal to reduce landfilling to a maximum of 10% of municipal waste by 2035. So there is a lot of work to do. Bulk amounts of waste need to be turned into secondary resources for a real circular economy model. And this will require important technological innovations for industrial plants to be able to process these secondary resources. And it will require important investments. So the lack of access to proper funding is also very important, and it could delay the transition. Waste management facilities also will need to be adapted, because they will need to sort the waste in a way that it can really become resources in the right quality format that the process industry can reuse and reintroduce in the system. But then another very important barrier to collaboration in general and to the implementation of industrial urban symbiosis in particular is indeed the building of a long-term trust relationship, especially for the industries. There are experiences out there, and some will talk today, that are achieving this, but this is key. Social acceptance will learn from some of the regions that is a barrier sometimes. Even if they have the right solutions, sometimes they are not accepted by society. So we need also to do some work there. And it is essential, the dialogue of the different types of stakeholders, including civil society, so that these barriers can be overcome. I will not read everything there. I just made a summary. You can have access to the slides afterwards. Could we move to the next slide, please? Could you click again? Next slide. This should not be there. Sorry. Thank you. So here, what are the facilitation aspects, right, that we need to consider? The important thing here is that our roadmap includes very important proposals to move from today's scenario of landfilling and incineration and recycling to upcycling. This is the future scenario. So upcycling means to reintroduce all these resources into the industrial system, but it is essential to keep the resources with the same quality and in the same loops as opposed to just downcycling. But there is also an important point, which is the eco-design of materials through innovative processes so that materials are free of toxic elements and can be upcycled in a better way later. It's important, the collaboration of the value chain, because afterwards, after our industries create a material, somebody creates a final product that we buy as citizens. And this final product needs to be easily disassembled also, so it can be upcycled. The materials can be upcycled. So that is very important. This HAPS modus operandi will be essential to mobilize all the stakeholders. We need all the stakeholders, public sector, industry, civil society, investors, to discuss academia, to discuss, to talk, to look for the needs of the regions, to look for the solutions that are needed, and who can do which investments so that the solutions as such can really become a reality. Then there is another important point also here, and I like this motto of working together is just a smart business. This is a motto from Kalundborg Symbiosis Center, because business decisions need to really consider not only the impact on their own company, but the impact also in the other companies. And in the end, maybe you lose a bit in one of your decisions, but you will gain other benefits by the decision of other companies that also have this win-win perspective. And in the end, all of them win, and this is being shown already. And the overcoming of the regulatory barriers can be also very important. So this HAPS modus operandi also needs to consider that part. Could we move to the next slide? Yeah, if you could maybe click. Yeah, again. And again, that's it. Previous slide. Yeah, thank you. So how are we helping with our roadmap to provide these solutions, right? So first, this is a unique cross-sectoral community. So we have the sectors at EU level on board, the industrial associations plus the companies, and all the sectors work together for common solutions, and they learn one from the other. These 36 innovation programs include all the innovation areas and programs that are needed to develop, to reach these ambitions that you see on the right of the screen. The climate neutrality, that is the net zero emissions goal. Then the net zero landfilling and net zero water discharge goal, but also the competitiveness of the increased competitiveness of the EU process industries. Because without competitiveness, you can have the cleanest industry in the world, but there will be no jobs because there will be no benefits. So that is very important. But look at these two key initiatives that we call the first deployment. Horizon Europe develops up to TRL 7 or 8, but we will not reach impact if we don't reach a TRL 9. So the first of a kind plans and the hubs for circularity are two key initiatives of our roadmap to really deliver impact. The first of a kind plans are more related to very innovative plans or units within a plant that can really boost the way the industrial plants work and drastically help to reduce CO2 emissions. Some of these can be in the hubs, but not all the hubs will be first of a kind plants, and that is a very important distinction. So the hubs for circularity are a bit of a different thing. Can we move to the next? Could you click back and again? No, back, sorry. Yeah, again, and then move to the next slide now. Sorry, because I made some changes, but that I wanted to show in the screen today, so some of the slides are not used due to time. So here you can see, and I will talk very quickly on this, that we are considering a tapestry of innovations to achieve circularity. It's not with a single thing that we will achieve that circularity. It's a circularity of carbon, it's a circularity of materials, it's the energy and resource efficiency, it's a non-technological innovations, including new business models for the circular economy, and very important, the regional approach. Next slide. Good. So here we are with the hubs for circularity. So what is the concept behind the hubs for circularity? First, there is an important point. Impact happens somewhere. Impact is not abstract. It's not because you finish a project there is impact. It's because the solutions are implemented somewhere that impact will come. And that's where the hubs for circularity play a very important role. And then the point of access for us were initially the regions, because they were very interested in this concept, but also because of that, we need to see how in each area we can generate that impact. And each region can decide which is the industrial side that will be more fit to create a hub for circularity, because it depends on the region. Then we need the regional community to gather all the types of stakeholders. We need to then develop this sustainable business model, what we call a business to territory plan. So what are the needs of the territory, and what are the solutions that can be put on the table, which need to come from the public sector, for example, the review or the refurbishment of a waste management plant, but others will come from the industry. And these are the types of disruptive innovations that we can work on and support from Aspire and from processes for planet calls. But of course, any other side effect that this will have in the regions, this will be a very positive impact generated by all these hubs for circularity. So these are self-sustaining economic industrial ecosystems to develop industrial urban symbiosis and circular economy at full scale. And then also so that these are transferred from hubs to hubs, from regions to regions. So this is exactly the goal of the hubs for circularity. Next slide. Yeah, so here you see the importance of the hubs is also based also on the study that Peter was mentioning at the beginning by Klaus Sommer, who was the first president of Aspire, by the way. It came this concept of the symbiosis readiness level. So what do we mean here? It means that there are regions that are more ready to have more quick solutions because they have more advanced, because they have been working. There are others that still need to gather the community and talk. All of them, all the initiatives need our support. Some of them to really generate the hub's modus operandi, some of them to accelerate the innovation, some of them can be trackers of the others. So this is the importance of these hubs for circularity and of these symbiosis readiness level. Optimally, all of them should get to TRL 9. This will take some time, but they can learn from each other. Next slide. Yeah, and then our roadmap also presents, and with this I will finish, an important initiative, which is the European Community of Practice, the ECOP, we call it. This European Community of Practice is the opportunity, is a network of networks to connect the hubs, to provide the right tools, and to promote the transfer of solutions across hubs and across EU regions. And this is very important. So the ECOP is the opportunity to make publicly available and accessible a set of tools, knowledge, and solutions for a better decision-making of the hubs for circularity so that they advance more quickly across the symbiosis readiness levels. So when we think about the ECOP, we cannot imagine a single market solution for all. The ECOP is not the opportunity for a single tool to be commercialized. We frankly believe that this would be a great mistake. And we encourage anybody presenting proposals for this ECOP topic to have a look at the wider picture, to have a look at our roadmap and see what we have in mind. So when we imagine the ECOP, we think about a handbook that helps the hubs for circularity to successfully accelerate their symbiosis readiness levels. We think about a group of tools with the right information so that each hub for circularity can select what fits best for them. We think about a space for the facilitators of each hub for circularity to share knowledge and best practices. The figure of a facilitator is very important to generate this trust, to build this trust among the different stakeholders that is utterly needed in a hub. But we also think about a kind of a marketplace or a space to showcase solutions that can be transferred for the hubs for circularity. We also see that the ECOP will be key for the hubs for circularity to deliver, and it will be very important that this ECOP strongly addresses the goals of Processes for Planet roadmap and strongly collaborates with ASPIRE new advisory and working structure. The ECOP needs to really contribute to the additional activities annual plan that Processes for Planet will develop under the new MOU framework with regards of the circularity ambitions and especially industrial urban symbiosis and the hubs for circularity. And that's all from my side. I hope I did not take too much time on top, Jürgen. And open for any question. I think now it's you who is muted, Jürgen.
Thank you for reminding me. Many thanks. I was about to grasp my clock, but I think it's very good that you gave a very comprehensive and clear overview. I suggest now, Dominique, you take over. I see one question, maybe I quickly answer. We are not speaking about a new program like EIT or EIC. We're speaking about related to Cluster 4, and there's a Horizon Europe program and linked to a partnership, Processes for Planet. You just got the presentation, how to implement here topics under Cluster 4. Dominique, over to you.
Thank you, Jürgen. Good morning. I will start with a set of slides explaining what we intend as Up for Circularity in the context of Horizon Europe. That's really clearly directed. So next slide, please. So visually, these are about funding lighthouse demonstrators of commercial size. It's nothing like innovation test beds or digital innovation hubs. It's completely different. It's really plans. So these hubs should deliver on the Green Deal objectives. So carbon neutrality, zero waste to landfill, water management, so reducing water usage and treatment, and zero pollution that should be added here, and maintaining global competitiveness. It's about accelerating and bridge the gap for deployment, as the previous speakers highlighted also. We are in close links with P4 Planet Partnership for that. And we are building on our experience with Horizon 2020, where we funded already a lot of projects on circularity and industrial symbiosis. So we will commit with all stakeholders, as you see in the back of the slide. And these hubs, having a strong regional, urban, or cross-border area could also be anchor, should be connected really globally and at least at European level, but also larger in a larger way to exchange technologies or best practices. Could also be that certain hubs will be highly specialized and would need to connect and with other hubs to exchange feedstocks, byproducts, or materials at different processing stages. So next slide, please. The ambition is really to trigger a step change towards implementation of industrial symbiosis and circularity. So taking advantage of regional specificities and what industrial clusters already exist, because we will not starting from nothing. These hubs will permit to reuse hundreds of millions of tons of waste and water. It will be reducing greenhouse gas emission in the same range. And it will create really attractive opportunities for the municipalities, regions, like job creation, developing a local market, sustainability benefits also, and these kind of stable commitments from different stakeholders will really permit to achieve win-win situations. These will need specific implementation, like additional funding strategies, because Horizon Europe will fund for the real hubs only a part of it. So additional funding will be needed to reach Tier 9 and beyond. They will need also participation of all stakeholders. That means industry, SMEs, local authorities, educational institutions, and civil society to get acceptance and make it possible. They will have a common target, which is really important. It's collectively achieve and demonstrate at scale a leap towards circularity and carbon neutrality in the use of resources, feedstock, energy, and water in a profitable way. So it will be a major asset to accelerate green industrial transition. Next slide, please. So I will skip this slide because the previous speakers already addressed that. So why does this matter? I think it should be clear. We need these tools to accelerate the transition that is needed to achieve the goal for the Green Deal. So next slide, please. Here I set up some first examples of what a hub could be. So that's an example on CO2 utilization and renewable energy sources. This how we can imagine it in the context of Horizon Europe. So we will need to develop certain technologies to achieve such kind of symbiosis and connections between industries and different stakeholders. Next slide, please. You have here another example of solid waste, quite a bit more complex, but we tried to address directly the issues of urban industrial symbiosis there. So next slide, please. What's our planning for implementation in Horizon Europe? So we have three phases. Phase 1, 2021-22, we will go for traditional topics. So one REA, one IA in 2022, and one CSA. Starting from 2023, we will have funding for real apps, so large-scale plans. So this will need to prepare the ground and to be ready for such implementation. That's why we start with these workshops. And phase 3, last phase of Horizon Europe, we will planning also to implement 3 other apps that will be 6 in total. That will be a major achievement if we can reach that. So next slide, please. Going into a bit more detail in the 2021-22 program. As Jürgen said, this is concerning cluster 4, so pillar 2, cluster 4. It's the new organization of Horizon Europe. So we are located in destination 1, which is addressing climate neutral, circular and digitized production, so-called twin transition. And that include the support of basically 2 partnerships, which is Made in Europe on manufacturing and P4 Planet that Angel explained you the basics on process industries. So the objective will be to with these sections on hubs for circularity is to achieve a step change in circular utilization of resources and greenhouse gas emission reductions, building on regional strength. And this will be first of a kind lighthouse demonstration plan of commercial size. The relevant topics for 21 are the REIA, deploying industrial urban symbiosis solutions for utilization of energy, water, industrial waste, and byproducts at regional scale. And the CSA on the ECO platform. So the main outcome we expect from the REA is really deploying real-scale exemplary pilot solutions, demonstrating the urban symbiosis concept, making the flow of energy, waste, and water circular, achieving near zero emissions and near zero water discharges. Reduce basically by 50% in weight or volume industrial waste generation and reduce significantly greenhouse gas emissions by reusing and transforming waste byproducts and side stream into resources and raw material. For the last topic, it's on solid waste. So that will be in 2022. It's really to deploy the concept on industrial symbiosis on a real scale demonstrator. Then a bit more about this ECO platform. Angel's already explained what it is about. So it's really a tool for connecting the hubs, and we will really build on that to spread the word, to exchange technologies and install really an exchange of best practice and more. So I think I arrive at the end of my presentation. This is the last slide. So
okay,
about
thank you very
steps.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yes.
Dominic. Thank you to you, Angels, because you presented the concept But you, Dominic, also embarked on that we are going to be now very concrete with funding several projects under Cluster 4. And that is a work program which should go out. It's a matter of days, a very few weeks, and we'll have an info day also end of May, where we will just present this more detail. I'm conscious of timing, but there are nevertheless maybe two questions I would like, which I'm taking from the chat box, and Anja, you already started answering. The first is, how is the cooperation between circularity hubs and the bioprocess industries cooperation? And the second one, I see enthusiasm. Can we not expand the concept even to go to products and cover retailing, automotive? Construction is actually covered in one of the topics already. Maybe you can give a quick feedback, and then I'm happy to hand over to Ludo Diels.
Sure. Yeah, I was trying to answer because I saw a lot of questions on the chat already. So certainly cooperation with other initiatives, whether it's the hydrogen valleys, the digital innovation hubs, or the hubs for the EIT or the EIC are welcomed. I think on this question on including other aspects from other sectors, I think this will depend very much on each hub. So each hub will have a reality. The point is that what we can do from Processes for Planet is on the technologies that affect that can be developed by the process industry so that they contribute to the hub. But then, of course, every hub can identify, depending on the industries they have there and depending on their needs, that other solutions and other links can be possible, and that will be great. Yeah. Then how this will be supported financially or through funding, this is a different thing. But as I said, any plan that the region creates needs to be comprehensive. And then we need to see what can be covered by P4Planet, what needs to be covered by the member states, by the regions, or by other programs. And that is for us the magic of the Hubs for Circularity.
Okay. Dominic, very briefly, because I see, Ludo, you're already offering that some questions can be taken up in the same panel. Dominic, anything you would like to add?
I think a lot of answer will be given also in the afternoon panel. So maybe we can go to the next panel to not lose too much time.
So we have presented the concept step by step. Please, let's get it started. I see already, well, there be beyond 2023 even more funding for established hubs for circularity. Yes, we are working with a partnership where we agree a budget over 7 years. But I think I suggest now we are getting more into a kind of feedback session. What do actually regions, member states, and others think about this whole concept? And I'm happy to hand over to, first of all, to thank Angels and Dominique, and then to hand over to you, Ludo. Ludo, you're a professor at the Antwerp University. Let's start with the basics. And you are, if you allow, and you are co-chairing actually the partnership board of Spire on the private side. But not only this, I think you have many other activities, including a trilateral collaboration actually with Flanders, Netherlands, and North Rhine-Westphalia, also on certain clusters. So rich experience, and over to you now to chair the first panel. Thank you to you.
Thank you very much, Jürgen, for the nice introduction, and also from my side, a warm good morning to all of you. I think we learned a lot about circular economy and the concept of hubs for circularity. It's more or less, how to say, the theory that we saw. So it's all about bringing circularity into practice due to the geographical proximity advantages. And this allows really local and regional authorities to give a very specific support to play the role of facilitator in these activities. And so we will try in the next nearly hour to give a few examples from the member states and the regions to show how we are starting this in some cases, even we have quite advanced hubs, etc. We will bring you a little bit of a testimony what is possible. And in order to start, I propose that we will start with a Spire project on industrial symbiosis, and this will be presented by Professor Dr. Greet van Eetvelde, who was the coordinator of this project under the name EPOS. And so we ask her to give a short introduction and to set a little bit the scene. Professor van Eetvelde heads the research group Energy and Cluster Management at the Engineering Faculty of the Ghent University. Is also visiting professor at the EPFL in Lausanne in Switzerland. And her main job is at the INEOS group, where she is the global head of climate, energy and innovation. Very nice to start this introduction. Great, you can you have the floor, and I hope that the office will share your slides.
I will do it myself. Thank you.
You do it yourself. Perfect.
Yes, yes. I hope this will work. If you just can tell me if you can see it. Welcome to everybody, and I'll try to share my screen immediately. And if you just tell me that you can see it, Ludo, then we're all good.
May I remind you to be short, because we are about 10 minutes behind schedule, so we have to see it. It's possible. It's okay. Perfect. You can go.
That is perfect. Thank you, Ludo. So again, welcome from my side, and thank you for being able to set the scene of this urban industrial symbiosis. I will guide you through a journey that started already in 1998 at Ghent University, because my life and how Ludi has introduced me is a synergy on its own. It's a synergy between industry and academia, starting at academia in Ghent University, as I said. Very back in time then, we were looking at business park management, but over time, that's in 25 years, we have grown into projects that look into cross-sectorial industrial symbiosis. And in fact, when I joined INEOS in 2011, then we faced the chemical clusters as they are right now, and those clusters have been for decades over there. So they also give us quite a good view on what symbiosis can be and how we can improve it. And then when joining in 2015 EPFL, there the focus is on the urban part of symbiosis. So as you can see, the double loop industry and academia have quickly changed into a triple one, taking also policy on board. And now we are moving into a quadruple circle, which takes also society on board. So I think that is why I was asked to give you a little bit of explanation on setting the scene by using EPOS as an example. And as Ludo rightly said, that's an old Spire Horizon 20 project, but it has just finished end of 2019. And the basic ambition was to make process industries more efficient and more cost effective, but also more competitive and especially also sustainable. And doing that by doing symbiosis, not only on the industry sites, but also in multi-party clusters. And I'll come back to that. And in the very end, the big aim of EPOS was to make a toolbox to enable, to enhance symbiosis in those clusters. And you can see all the partners on the right-hand side, and I'll come back to them, because EPOS is a bit of an example, as I said, for setting the scene on the discussion of hubs, on hubs for circularity, because of the type of the EPOS clusters, for instance. We had two types of clusters. We had industrial clusters, really with different sectors, different companies from different sectors on board and trying to work together with the other ones in the partnership. And we also had district clusters, and the district clusters were a company together with a community that worked together and that tried to find symbiosis. And also because the spread of the EPOS clusters is all across Europe. We had a very strong industrial cluster in Omia, with Omia in the lead in the UK. And then in the south of Europe, we had in Lavera a cluster that was led by the chemical industry. But most important We also had a very strong cluster in the east of Europe, in Poland, in Rudniki, and Edita will be in this panel, and she can say a lot more on it. But also, not only different sizes, different types, different regions in EPOS, also a number of actors that are really important. Absolutely not only project partners with a process industry profile. What we tend to call in EPOS that a cluster is but good when there is also SMEs on board. We call them the glue of the symbiosis. They are really an enabler. And to give you an example, we had 5 different SMEs on board, a major one who provided us with the technologies that could enable industrial symbiosis, another one that did the modeling of those technologies to build them into the EPOS toolbox, so a little IT company. Then, of course, a company that helped us to build the business models around symbiosis, and another one that looked into the sustainability assessment of the symbiosis options that we have. And then finally, a last one on communications. But not only the project partners and all the industrial partners were important, absolutely important was also the advisory board that we had, where we took all the local stakeholders on board and also the associations of the process industries. And here again, this regional support, this local support, the cities and the villages in EPOS, they were really the enablers of symbiosis. As I said before, the drive of EPOS was absolutely not only to look for economic or competitiveness advantages, but mostly also to see where we could help to become more sustainable as clusters. Enough on EPOS now. What you have heard, and also what Mr. Petrovic just has said, that cohesion policy, collaboration, this is really the key of urban industrial symbiosis. And that is where government, academia, and industry find each other. A quick example from each side, starting bottom up in the industry. INEOS, I'm also leading the climate and energy and the innovation agenda of INEOS, as you have heard. Well, that's chemical industry, and an example is Antwerp. We have chemical sites that for decades have attracted third parties to use the resources that we have, or the byproducts that we have on the site. So the collaboration on resources and on any kind of energy streams. There is also projects, of course, projects in the value chain that have popped up recently or are already there for a longer time, waste to product, power to methanol, Antwerp at sea, putting a backbone for having carbon to be utilized or stored somewhere in the North Sea. And then another type of clusters, of course, are networks. And then again, the Port of Antwerp is a typical example where we have district heating, where there is industrial steam networks, where there is a lot of resources, networks, and feedstock that is coming in. And now I use the symbol for yin-yang, which is in fact a concept of dualism. And that's a very important concept, and it's a concept that we will take throughout Hubs for Circularity as well, because it says that seemingly opposite forces are coming together, are complementing each other, are interconnecting, or interdepending from each other, asking to be related to interact with each other. And now I'm going back to the academic bit of it, because back in 1998, when we started the research on symbiosis, we said that in essence, there is a bunch of companies and a bunch of actors that are individuals, and then they come together around a certain topic where they see a benefit of aligning, and then they grow into an area that is really sustainable because they see that that little embryo of working together can bring them a bit more benefit. And then in the end, we look wider than only the industrial symbiosis, and we look also at the yin-yang of the collaboration. And in essence, what we say is that you can start from a wish, or there is a need, or there is a duty to collaborate. And of course, the wish is the nicest way to collaborate. And that is where the policy comes into place, in the duty aspect, but also in enabling that wish. So circular economy, and with Processes for Planet, we definitely have a nice vehicle expanding from Spire. So Spire, the old Spire, was looking at process industry to make them sustainable from an energy and resource point of view. And this is what Aspire now is continuing, as you have heard from Angels. And having hubs for circularity there is an extremely important part of it. And that is where that balance between what is needed, what is wished for, and what is a duty comes together. And of course, it links again nicely with the research that we do at the University of Ghent. And we have a PhD thesis specifically on those hubs by Francisco Mendez, who is joined in the call. And we have a master thesis working together with Aspire to define across Europe where all those potential hubs could be. And we have actually built a model to show, to demonstrate where the hubs in Europe can be and how they can be improved. So in the end of this setting the scene, we add society to the triple helix that you saw. And society today is engaging with citizens, is engaging with communities in a sharing and a caring economy. And that is what I wanted to say. To enable urban and industrial symbiosis, the double up, there is a tremendous lot of things that we can do as industry, as society, as governments, and also as academia. And it will always start from that wish, need, and duty, but we can nicely say that today the wish is also coming from society, is also coming from policy. And this is where we will have a debate on. So Ludo, if it's okay to you, I'll stop sharing. You can see the contacts on the screen. And if you want to contact us, please just give us an email, or the presentation will be shared afterwards. I am not able to stop sharing. Yeah, and now I can. So Ludo, happy to hand over back to you. You're muted, Ludo.
So great, thanks a lot for this nice presentation. I think you clearly showed that moving from already long time existing chemical sites, we moved to this cross-sectorial industrial symbiosis, and finally you added nicely the society via the urban setting, what you call district clusters in EPOS, together. And I think this answers already part of the questions that we had after the first introductions, that indeed we also include strongly consumers and also consumer waste, etc., in these processes. Thanks a lot. We come back to you further later in the panel. I would like now to move to what we can call an advanced hub. And we will present you the Smart Delta region, which is an international and an inter-regional collaboration. It's between Belgium and the Netherlands. Patrick Lafontaine will introduce us this cross-sectorial cluster. Patrick is project developer with the Small Delta Resources and also for the North CCU Consortium in the provinces of Zeeland and East Flanders. So you will hear again the interregional issues. He will give us a flavor of linking hydrogen, carbon, renewable energy, heat, and CO2. You can see this is really linking of big feedstocks, big energy streams that we really need in the future. I hope, Patrick, that you are there, and I would like to give you the floor and you can share your screen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ludo, for inviting Smart Delta Resources to this workshop. So I will now see if I can share my It's going to be shared.
Yeah, Frank is doing it, so you just...
Okay, very well. Thank you very much.
Please go on.
Next slide. Well, Smart Delta Resources, as Rudy already said, is a cross-sectoral and a cross-border international partnership. And we have, today, we have 11 energy-intensive and industrial companies that have joined. And we have an active support of the provinces of Zeeland and East Flanders in Belgium and in the Netherlands. The cross-border Harbour Authority North Sea Port and the Dutch and Belgian gas companies, GasUnie and Fluxys. Next slide, please. So the area is located at the North Sea, and it is the delta area of the rivers Scheldt and Maas in the south of the Netherlands and the north of Belgium. So there are a number of very important, innovative world top companies. I will expand on that later. And these offer a direct and an indirect employment for about 100,000 people in the area. On the other hand, well, most of these industries use fossil feedstocks, and that means, as a result, that there is a potential of CO2 reduction of more than 20 million tons per year, and this is of the same size of what is emitted in the harbors of Amsterdam and Rotterdam, for instance, in the area. Now, in the area, there's a lot of potential of wind energy, and already today in the area we have something like 4,000 megawatts, so 4 gigawatts of wind energy that is landing, and this will be one of the keystones of the whole strategy. It's highly industrialized, as I said, simply because it's located at the sea in 3 harbor areas, Terneuzen and Vlissingen in the Netherlands and Ghent in Belgium. It's a very diversified industry, so we have all sorts of sectors that are represented, like chemicals, petrochemicals, steel, paper, fertilizers, car assembly, food. And this offers a lot of opportunities for industrial symbiosis. Next slide, please. So here you see the most important partners in the area. So they are all world top companies. ArcelorMittal in the steel sector, Cargill is food, Coaston also, Dow is chemical, Engie is energy, Fluxys and GasUnie are the gas companies. Ørsted is an important offshore wind power producer. So with all these companies together, we have developed a program and we develop projects based on industrial symbiosis and CO2 emissions reduction. Next, please. So we have, in fact, defined our strategy around 8 innovative technologies and 5 programs. So the 8 innovative technologies are renewable energy, hydrogen produced with renewable energy through water electrolysis, geothermic energy and heat pump technology, carbon capture and storage technology, carbon capture and utilization technology, and circular plastics and wood production. And with all these technologies, we want to achieve our roadmap for a reduction of CO2 emissions. So it is clear that there is no single miracle solution for CO2 reduction. You have to use all these 8 technologies. And to apply that, we have defined 5 programs. Next, please. So the Hydrogen Delta program, as the name indicates, is based on hydrogen production from renewable energy, which will be essentially coming from offshore wind plants, which are located at the Belgian and Dutch coast. So we have developed a master plan, which is to develop 4 sites in the area for hydrogen production, and which will be interconnected to an international network of hydrogen pipelines, which are currently being developed by GasUnie in the Netherlands and Fluxys in Belgium. Now we have started developing 3 demonstration sites where we will build electrolysis plants with a size of something like 100 or 200 megawatts, and which will be used in the different industries. It's important to know that in the area already today, some 450 kilotons of hydrogen are used in different industries. So in fact, the demand is there. The hydrogen today is produced based on fossil fuels, and in the future, this hydrogen will be replaced by green hydrogen produced by renewable energy and water electrolysis. Now, we have already realized a project in this area. For instance, the project is a link between Dow and Yara. So Dow is a chemical industry which has a surplus of hydrogen, and Yara is a fertilizer industry which produces ammonia. Now, today, this ammonia is produced from natural gas, and we will replace a part of the hydrogen needed for the ammonia synthesis with hydrogen coming from Dow. And this has been realized in 2018. We are using a disaffected gas-uni pipe to do that. So this is a clear example of synergy, how you can realize a project using existing infrastructure. Next slide, please. The second program is the Carbon Connected Delta. Now, this is about carbon capture and storage. So a number of industries will partly decarbonize their processes by capturing the CO2 and transporting it by pipeline and by ship to storage areas located in the North Sea. So this is necessary because as I said, one single technology cannot solve the whole CO2 emission problem. So we need different technologies to be developed simultaneously. Next slide, please. So the Spark Delta program is about electrification of processes. So one of the solutions of replacing fossil fuels by renewable energy is using electricity directly in processes. And there are several possibilities. For instance, electroheated crackers in the chemical and the petrochemical industry, heat pumps, electric drives instead of steam-driven devices. So the whole process of electrifying processes will increase significantly the electricity demand in the area, and therefore the electric infrastructure, so the high voltage lines, have to be reinforced, and the landing of offshore wind energy will also be made possible by developing the electricity grids.
Frank,
next slide, please.
Frank, may I interrupt and ask to speed up a little bit in view of the time? Sorry for that.
Thank you. I'll do that. So the Heat Delta program is about recovering waste heat from the industry. And here is a link with the urban environment because the recovered heat will not only be used from industry to industry, but it will also be connected to residential areas where buildings will be heated by waste heat instead of natural gas. It's important to know that we already realized an important project between Stora Enso and Volvo, where heat is recovered from Stora Enso, a paper mill, and is used in Volvo, a car assembly factory. Next slide, please. This is then the fifth program, and this is about carbon capture and utilization. So here we want to set up a carbon capture and utilization hub where we will use the CO2 that is captured in industries and the hydrogen that is produced with electrolysis and renewable energy. And in this hub, products like methanol will be produced, but we will also use the oxygen which is produced at the same time of the hydrogen and the water electrolysis, and we will also recover the waste heat from these processes. Methanol will be used as a base product in the chemical industry, which is located in the area. And we are also developing paths to microbial proteins for food and feed and capturing CO2 for building materials. Next slide, please. And this is a first demo project, large-scale demo project for methanol production. I'm happy to announce that we have filed an application for the Innovation Fund for this project, and that we have passed the first stage. So we will now apply for the second stage, and we hope to be successful and that we can come to financial close in this project very soon. Next slide, please. So now, what is the role of SDR as a, let's say, a consortium of private industries and public organizations? In fact, we see ourselves as a facilitating framework for infrastructure, for financing and regulation. So infrastructure simply because the whole program is based on Symbiosis with a number of products that we want to exchange, like hydrogen, CO2, electricity and heat. And Smart Delta Resources is facilitating the creation of the necessary infrastructure with the different stakeholders. Financing is important because, well, if you introduce innovative technology and you start replacing fossil feedstocks with renewable energy, it is clear that today the cost of the products will increase, and this will have to be temporarily covered by financing the unprofitable top with subsidies. And here we are also acting as a facilitator for the applications for different subsidies. And finally, regulation is especially an issue because we have a cross-border program, and a lot has to be done to make sure that regulations and politics are following just to make cross-border transportation of all these products possible, and that companies like Gasunie and Fluxys work together, and that we can solve all the issuing permits for what we have to build. So thank you very much for listening to me. So I had to go quickly, so you will find all the details which I could not mention in the presentation. I'm sure that you will be able to get all the information you need. And don't hesitate to contact me if you have particular questions on all these topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick, and sorry for chasing you up a little bit, but in view of time, we have to do it a little bit. So I think you clearly showed also, and I would like to make a link to what was happening in the chat box, that the hydrogen delta is in fact like a hydrogen valley working together with this hub for circularity. So this is a really nice example of this proximity being in the delta and having the energy that is produced offshore, that this can be combined. There was also a question about expansion outside energy intensive industries or process industries. You clearly showed the link with Volvo, which is a manufacturing car, automotive industry. So in that way, I think really everything can be linked, and also the urban element came strongly into your presentation via these heat district systems, etc. So thank you very much. We move on now to the opposite a little bit. We move now to a starting hub. And so I invite Paz Palacio Fernandez of IDEP. IDEP is the Economic Development Institute of Asturias in Spain. And they are starting a hub. And so they see a lot of possibilities in this way. And they will present us how they detected all the potentials and how they are developing this further. Bas, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, of course, for giving us the opportunity to be part of this panel. And it's our pleasure. I will try to be brief and to leave time for discussion, of course. And first, as you just said, we are a very young hub. We'd like to share with you our experience putting in place the concept and the model. As is normal, our hub has a lot to do with our territory and with our potential, with our challenges, specific challenges. And Asturias is a small region in the north of Spain. I have seen the samples in the west. They say West Europe, East Europe. I would say we are far west. We are in the far west Europe, in the north, a region of 100 million inhabitants. Please, next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So what is special in Asturias is that if we compare with at least with the other Spanish regions, we have a unique concentration of these high impact materials producers like steel, zinc, but fertilizers, glass, cement, also paper, as some of the companies are similar, the ones we have seen in this big project of Delta. And all these energy intensive industries are in our region very concentrated in our central metropolitan area. And we are surrounded by a very high value natural land. We are known as natural paradise, and 33 of our land is now legal protected. So we had this specific situation that pushed us to face some years ago our circular around industrial transition focus on circular economy. So our scenario for the future is that we want to keep our industrial leadership, but we have to do it committed, and we want to do it committed with the environment. And our mainstream idea is to consider our process industry the beginning of the waste, because they are big producers of waste, but very important, the end of the waste. Please, next. I would like to share you in these two slides our background. Even though our hub, we are putting in place the hub, we have been working in this issue for many years. I think when we start elaborating the first smart specialization strategy back in 2012, we decided to choose this topic, sustainable materials, as one of our priorities. And I think this is important because, in my opinion, the hub needs to have the roots, the background, an initial path that takes some years to work on. And if you choose the right topic before it becomes an urgent issue, you, especially from a technological point of view, you are ready on time for that. Just explain you that, and this is also an example of synergies between horizon and cohesion policies, as was mentioned this morning, at the beginning of the morning. We did our roadmap in a very co-design process. For a year, we worked with 58 industries, many big industries, R&T offer, but with government. Here, the policy mix was really important. Our agency depends on the industrial ministry, regional ministry, but we work together with the environmental regional ministry, and they were very willing to have a role, a collaborative role, more further to sanction or to implement legislation. There is an important, let me point out, an important participant here or partner, that is Cogersa. Cogersa is our regional and municipal waste company, a waste treatment municipal waste company. That's also different in Asturias from other Spanish regions, because since the 80s, all the municipal waste has been concentrated in one single site and has been managed by one single company where all local and regional authorities are together. This is, sorry for so many explanations, but it was important for us because as you will see, the landfill, the single landfill of the whole region is almost full, and for 10 or 15 years, the society does not allow any more incineration. Now it's clear because the new EU legislation, but in advance we had this challenge, and this company is very committed looking for some circular solutions and symbiosis with their waste, municipal waste. This is it. Just the kickoff of our hub, it was in the 2019. We had this event with all our community that we were working with, also supported by the Joint Research Center. Once again, a synergy with Europe that was very useful for us, supporting us to do the kickoff. The next slide is also related with our background.
Pascal,
at the same time,
I really
yes,
invite you to be shorter and speed up.
yes.
Sorry for that.
Okay, I understand. Well, this is just a slide related with, we will have building a network of pilot plans, existing pilot plans for designing and comprehensive valorization pathways so we can work on value chains and looking for markets for all our waste, and it's already in place in our website. And please, next. This was all this background helped us for this concept I'm going to present to you. The model of the hub has been reshaped thanks a proposal we have been applying for last January that helped us to see the bigger picture again of the hub and to be more ambitious. Now the intersectoral collaboration goes beyond process industry. That is really crucial for us, I said, but together with food product industry, with all our engineering and technical sector. And all together they represent about 29,000 employees. That for us is an important critical mass. So again, in the next slide, I will show you how we have designed our hub. We have identified 3 models related with symbiosis. The model, there is one, the third model related to textile is, we haven't identified so far the symbiosis, but we think it's important because it is in line with the European Circular Action Plan. And at the end, the impact that they are looking is a very business-oriented impact. So we are pleased to include this third pillar, to not that systemic so far, but it fits very well in our hub. There are 2 big demo sites. One is supply-driven. As I said, Cogersa, our municipal waste companies, working very hard, trying to attract technology and industry for their waste, trying to look for solutions for their organic waste and to transform them into bioproducts. And they have this site that is already working as the initial hub, but we need an important step forward. And the last demo site is, of course, led by our steel industry. For us, is crucial. No, sorry. Well, it's not. Is the one before, please? The slide. Well. Okay, just a minute. This steel industry customer-driven model has been led by our big steel industry, and they are identifying all this waste in the territory, mainly from food industry and from municipal waste, to incorporate in the steel making process. In this case, the impact is not waste is not, the main impact is CO2 emission reduction, even though they will impact in waste recovery. So each of the model, they are looking for different impact, but we are designing it to be very systemic, in a systemic way. Last, please. I'm sorry for taking you too much time. The last slide is now. Okay. Just to share with you that of course we have identified, no, the one before, please. We have identified this need for facilitating activities. And next, please. Sorry. We are getting crazy because we want to speed up. These facilitating activities, as I said, is very important. The hub to run, to have a mutual trust between companies. They have to be sure from the demand and offer side, they trust and they will be committed. And public-private confidence is because these public-private initiatives should put in place. We did identify from the beginning all these legal barriers. So for this, the environmental government is important. New digitalization opportunities for data communities, time, we have to be on time. There is a lot of competition between these companies, are in a very competitive market, but also there is competition among plants from the same multinationals. So as I said at the beginning, that do it very accelerated and on time is very important. Of course, funds. And finally, we have identified some services we have to deliver, new services more related to close the innovation chain or to increase the training, especially for new employees, because for us, industrial employment is also crucial. So I will be pleased to discuss some of these elements we have identified as a facilitators of hub, and as you can see, is really complex, needs funds, that sometimes very huge funds for an agency, but the complexity also it's big, and we have to do it the step forward in a small period of time. Thank you very much. I hope it was brief. Was it?
Thank you. Ludo, if you allow me, in terms of timekeeping, I suggest we carry on now until 12:20, because there will be still one presentation, a few questions, and then we resume at 5 minutes after 1. But you already encouraged people to be brief, and that would be nice, because it's very rich material we are really getting today. And thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for this intervention, Jürgen. I was thinking to at least to take all the minutes that was devoted to our session. So in this way, we have a little bit more time, and I will not make the next speaker so too nervous as I have done with Paz. Sorry for that. So I think, Paz, thank you very much for the very nice presentation. It clearly showed us how a hub can start, and to have a very big industrial setting, and on the other hand you have this strong natural biodiversity setting. And I think you did not mention it, but if I'm not mistaken, also the impact of agriculture and the link with agriculture in the future can even be an issue of further integration in your hub.
That's right. Yes, thank you.
I think I remember it from the first meeting we had. And I think also you showed clearly the link to consumer waste in certain ways. It was a pressure on one hand for the landfilling, but also you see the nice combination. And in that way, we show clearly the link with the urban situation and with consumers and citizens, etc. Thanks a lot. So let's move on now and do the last testimony. And now we move to what I would call more a dedicated hub. And Edita Teperska will give us an introduction to the Rudniki cluster. It was already mentioned by Great in the EPOS project. Edita is continuous improvement manager in Cemex. It's a cement industry in Poland, and will give us some insights on the approach in this cluster. And here we will see again a strong link to on one hand to the urban situation, and it will also allow us to speak about supply versus demand-driven hubs. Edita, you have the floor.
Hello, thank you all for being here today. May I see a presentation? Thank you, Frank. Okay, so I've got my 5 minutes. My name is Edyta Teperska and I work for Cemex. Cemex is a construction company producing cement, concrete, and providing aggregates and urbanization solutions. Next slide, please, Frank. In more than 50 countries around the world and with more than 100 years of experience, the company's experience, not mine. And on the next slide, I would like the next one, please. I would like to share some experience from my plant, from the cement producer, and from a EPOS project that Professor Grit has just presented, in which we participated in, together with other big industries, which you can see on the slide, with universities and with some small and medium enterprises. And on the next slide, you know, what one man may say that industrial symbiosis is nothing new for the cement industry and for my plant, because actually we enter into the business relationships with many partners regularly since the beginning of the company. And however, in today's world, there is a new light on such a cooperation. And generally speaking, as in the past, it was only a business-driven activity. Now it's all about the business awareness, about the business responsibility towards environment, towards local communities, towards future generations. And it's all about the conscious decisions of the market players. On this slide that is presented now, you can see in the middle the traditional feedstocks which are used in the cement industry. You can see the raw materials, you can see the fuels, you can see the natural resources, which are shrinking natural resources actually. But please take a look at the columns on the right and left-hand side. Those are the wastes or byproducts, which are derived from many different industries as are presented on the slide. So those are the alternative raw materials, actually waste from other industries, which we can use as a substitute and which we use actually as a substitute for natural resources, like the fly ashes, like slags, like sludges, gypsum, etc. And in the second column, you can see the alternative fuels coming from industrial, from municipal waste as a substitute for coal. So can you see a nice circularity picture in life here? And the question is, why are we looking for them? Why are you using them? And the answer is on the next slide. We are doing this because we care. Because we care. In Cemex, we recognize the responsibility to join the collective actions to positively impact the world. We believe that actually sustainability is the most meaningful way of doing business. And here are our targets. And as Peter said in the introduction, we are a good example of going beyond the horizons, because we are engaging local communities, we engage local authorities, schools, raising the awareness and engaging other, playing even sometimes a kind of an educational role. And as you all know, the circular economy model is inspired by nature, and waste does not exist in nature. It's reused, it's recycled, it's reduced. So that's what we do in Cemex. And on the next slide, you can see the examples of industrial symbiosis cases. Those were the cases identified in EPOS clusters in which Cemex participated. And out of this experience, and generally speaking, the industrial symbiosis and circularity are not always possible. And they are not always possible due to the very simple reasons. So it's basically the lack of knowledge about processes, about other companies, about the possible resources to share. Sometimes it's the lack of interest because we don't know, we are not interested. Many times it's about the confidentiality issues. And EPOS was a perfect example of a common platform solving these problems. And I think that the market players should understand that there are benefits from the participation in the common projects. All the actors that you mentioned in the previous presentation. So a kind of a planned and consequent exchange of knowledge, exchange of information. So it's not a standard business transaction, but a conscious decision with the purpose of engaging many different stakeholders, authorities, associations, academia, communities. And the next slide, please. Yes, my plant is a very good example of addressing the circularity challenges. And here you can see the proven numbers behind. So with our perfect location, because we are in a highly industrialized area, with excellent access to both raw materials and alternative fuels, with an investment conducted recently in a very modern clinker production line, we obtain, as you can see, the reduction of heat consumption, increase of alternative fuel substitution, reduction of CO2 emissions. Actually, the substitution of the alternative fuels, we recorded the record in March at the level of 94%, which is really, really nice. And all it goes in line with CEMEX's global strategy and the target of CO2 reduction in our European operations of at least 55% by 2030. And the next slide, having in mind all the benefits and interests, which are actually the interests of all of us, we are still facing many challenges. And those are the uncertain or unstable political environment, economic conditions, availability of alternative fuels, of raw materials, the question about the cost, quality, energy markets, and also the disruptions due to the conflicting interests of stakeholders which do not understand each other. So it's been a short insight from my perspective. Thank you for listening. Ludo?
Thank you very much, Edita, for keeping the time very well, etc. And also, I think you showed very clearly that you have access to a lot of alternative raw materials and a lot of alternative fuels in the neighborhood due to this industrial proximity, etc. On the other hand, I also think that in the future, process industries will change a lot due to the reasons that we mentioned in the beginning. So waste will become maybe less, and waste will also be changed in structure, etc. So this can also have some impact on future prognosis for this integration. May I ask the four speakers to turn on their camera and mic so that we can continue with a short panel discussion. First of all, I think it was very clear, and it was mentioned by Angels, that building of long-term trust is an extremely important point in this collaboration, in this symbiosis. We mentioned several times that local authorities can play a strong role over there as a facilitator to set up these hubs or to improve them, etc. Already Edita mentioned about liabilities, confidentialities, etc. that are not so easy. So I would like to ask to the four speakers, what is their experience about this facilitation by authorities, etc. And maybe, in order to not lose too much time, what are also the hurdles that you have seen? So please don't hesitate to start, then we will not lose too much time. Who wants to take the floor?
Shall I quickly say something, Ludo?
Yes, please.
But I'll be very quick. I think what Edita has presented and also the previous panelists have presented is completely true. The regions and the local authorities, the regional authorities, are more than an enabler, they're even a catalyst. They really make it happen. But we still need to be very conscious that the initiative must be borne by industry as well as being a wish from governments or authorities, or being a wish from any other actor. To get the process industries involved, to get the energy intensive industries, but all industries involved, there needs to be the triple up of the people, planet, profit, the sustainability triangle. So there is as much an environment as a societal gain as there should be also a business push forward. And that is, again, directly also an obstacle. It's what you were asking. And also, of course, what Edita said, having data available. I'll stop here. I can go on, but maybe someone else wants to say something.
So maybe some of the others can say something, especially maybe also to Patrick. They have done a lot of work already, and so I can imagine that it's not always so easy. I remember from another workshop that somebody from industry was saying, yes, authorities, they play the role of facilitator, but sometimes they go a little bit, how to say, too far, and then industry is getting a little bit nervous because they are taking over some of their issues. Did you see any of these problems, Patrick?
Not up to now. Well, we have taken care of, for instance, possible issues about intellectual property, and we signed a non-disclosure agreement with all our partners, and we take care of not spreading confidential information to other partners. So that is handled in this way. And on the other hand, many of the projects that we do are, for the largest part, done within the fence of the companies, and that's, let's say, that is what they take care of. We facilitate, for instance, the infrastructure that is needed between companies. We facilitate the contacts with knowledge institutions, like, for instance, the University of Ghent, the University of Delft in the Netherlands, but also the spearhead clusters in Flanders, and the knowledge institutions in the Netherlands. So we are very cautious about not interfering with the partner's own business.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. Maybe in addition to this, another question, and also linking it to the study that was made by Klaus Sommer. It was mentioned by Peter this morning. In the study on hubs for circularity and industrial symbiosis, Klaus was mentioning that very often we see that we start from a supply side. I have a waste and I try to sell it to somebody. And he was mentioning that also from the demand side would be a much more economic issue, because then you are looking for something that you need, and people will be maybe more eager to provide it to you. So maybe I see this very strongly in the example that was given by Edita. I open the discussion to everybody, but maybe first to Edita. Can you support this idea that coming from this demand side, because you needed a lot of alternative fuels, you needed a lot of alternative raw materials, that this is also a very nice and maybe more economic way to look at it?
Yeah, it's a very good comparison between those two approaches, between the supply and demand-based ones. And in my opinion, it has been a significant change in this respect in the recent years, which are resulting from operational, from the environmental, from the quality restrictions, because there are very strict regulations for both the manufacturing processes and for the quality of the final product that need to be fulfilled. Therefore, it's definitely not like accepting everything what the market provides, but it's rather demanding what is specially required. And therefore, the knowledge and understanding of the process are necessary, what we mentioned before.
Okay, thanks. Maybe a last question, and I ask this question especially to Paas, who is starting this new hub. What about awareness raising? Because you are still in the phase of creating such a collaboration, of setting up this collaboration. Is it easy to convince people that there should be an economic, but also an environmental or climate, etc., or sustainability advantage? Paas, are you there? I don't hear Paas. Paas, are you muted or are you not there? Paas, did you hear my question or not? Because I see you are saying something in the chat. Maybe
She cannot listen, it seems.
Yeah, okay. So then I will keep the question for the others. How do you see this about awareness raising? Is there really an acceptance of it by your communities, or do you have to make a lot of efforts concerning creating setting the first step, etc.?
If you allow me, Ludo, I think we have reached the 12:20.
Yep.
We're just like a pitching very quick answer that we can close for lunch. Sorry for being a bit intrusive here.
No, that was, I wanted to give the floor to us.
Maybe very brief answer, and then we close for lunch.
So can somebody of the three of the four answer on this?
Yes, I think, well, you already mentioned that the demand-driven element is important, and that's exactly what we did in our area. So we started looking for what are the needs of the companies and what are the products that they can use from carbon capture and utilization, for instance, from hydrogen production. So what you do has to respond to a real need, and they have to see really the added value of what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Patrick, for this nice answer, and I think it confirms what Klaus was writing in his document as well. I would like to thank the four speakers, especially for the very nice testimonies and showing the different aspects of Hubs for Circularity. I think it gave us much more of flavor of what it is really in practice, and in that way we can further build on it for the further discussion this afternoon, but also for the coming years to make stronger, more developed Hubs for Circularity in the future. Also, I'd like to thank the audience that is still quite well available and listening. So, and I give now the floor again to Jürgen. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ludo. Thank you to all the speakers. Two small points. We will put into the chat for the afternoon this report from Klaus Sommer, mentioned several times. And second point, I wish you all a good break. We are meeting again 5 minutes after 1 o'clock to kick it off again. Thank you very much. And to all those who have the time, enjoy the sunshine and bon appetit. Thank you. 5 minutes after 1, we start again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.